Gotta take the time to cut them off, I need help. I know how to make the girl go crazy when you treat her like your number one baby.
What is the deal, beautiful people? It's your boy Ramon, Lifestyles Defined. Welcome back. Let's talk about the OnePlus 5. A lot of hype was surrounding this phone, and I guess rightfully so. OnePlus, when they first started, and let me just underline that statement with just started, because they're actually owned by Oppo. So for a while, I guess I found out about 2 or so years ago, for a while I thought they were this sort of startup, smaller company. And they operated as such, and the product they offered was as such. It was very disruptive, but they're not. That's the end game here. They're not, and I'm gonna dig into that a little later on. But when they first started, they had a unique approach, and it was to show the ass of a lot of the other OEMs out there that were charging ridiculous amounts for smartphones. And this was in the era where smartphones sort of went from $400-$500 to $600-$800, and then at the same time that was happening, you saw this shift where carriers were no longer subsidizing phones, where you could pay on a monthly basis, or you could just outright buy the phone. So a lot of people were, for the first time, being exposed to the actual cost of the MSRP of these phones. So OnePlus sort of made their stance in that market, and they offered a surprising amount of specs and performance for a price. And the phones were well designed and very tasteful at the same time. So the hype for OnePlus, I think, was worth it. Here comes the OnePlus 5, and I'm not sure how to feel about this phone. So let me just give you the glance over the specs. So the display is a 5.5-inch display, 1080p. Not sure how to feel about that. It comes with the Snapdragon 835 processor, which I think is that's what we can expect in today's world. Now, from OnePlus, I didn't expect this processor. I expect something like the 821, but I'm happy to see it here. And of course, you know that pairs with the Adreno 540. It comes either 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know how to feel about that. And I know we'll get into that later, because you can sort of there's no way you look at something like more RAM and say, well, what the hell is the problem? Maybe more RAM is better. Sure, why not? Storage is 64 or 128, and it comes with a USB Type-C and a 3300 milliamp battery. And of course, they've got the cameras on the back, the dual display cameras. We'll get into that a bit. So, from a design standpoint, I think the OnePlus 5 looks fine. Of course, you know, it doesn't follow the current trend of the 2017 phones that are going on around here with very thin bezels. And no doubt when Apple comes to market, they're going to follow that same trend. Very attractive screen to ratio or bezel to screen or screen to bezel ratio, where it's just this big ass display on the front. They don't follow that trend, and I read an article, or was an interview from one of the developers, and they said, listen, we just didn't have the money or the amount of capital to make that happen. Interesting. You couldn't knock on Apple's door and ask for more. Sure, why not? But the design, I think, is fine. I have no quarrels with the design. I like to see that they're taking the camera seriously. The OnePlus, is it the OnePlus 3T that just came out, had a decent camera. The one before that had a decent camera. So, you know, they've been knocking away at cameras, and I think that is, the camera is sort of the plight of Android. You know, you can deal with a mediocre performing device, but those devices in the Android world, a $200, $300 device, often came with a god-awful camera. So it's good to see OnePlus really attacking that and saying, no, because it's not a flagship doesn't mean it doesn't have a good camera. So they've got the new dual camera going on there. Speaking of, I mean, it's a dual camera display. A dual camera setup. Sorry, we all know what to expect there. I've been seeing some great feedback from the camera. Pocket Now, Wong Bagnell, he does his camera reviews, very extensive, and he said he liked it. You know, it wasn't the best performing thing in the world, but it was far from the worst, and I thought that was cool. So yeah, it's a solid shooter, I suppose, and I always want to put my disclaimer stamp when talking about cameras on cell phones, because you guys know at this point I'm a full-blown photographer and I'm knee deep in my craft. Don't forget to check out the LD Photography channel. Links always in the description below. We are not shameless about our plugs around here, or shameful about our plugs around here, but I think even if you look at something like the Galaxy S8 or the iPhone, these cameras are so capable, wildly capable, so much so that they're sort of overkill for people who don't even use these things, and that's fine. I have no quarrels against that. Give them more than they need and they'll be super happy. But if you are at the very least a novice photographer, you'll be able to get done with any of these cameras, even mediocre cell phone cameras, because photography is all about patience and composition. So let's not get into the fact of comparing it to the Galaxy. And no, listen, it has a capable camera. It's good. Let's move on. Coming down back to that RAM. And this is where the OnePlus really starts to fall apart for me, is these next 2 points. Is in the performance. Now, sure, it has an 835, and I would have wished it to have a better display, something with a quad HD. But when on paper you look at something like, okay, here's just interesting combination. We give it the Snapdragon 835, which is balls to the wall performance. We give it a boatload of RAM, and we only give it a 1080p display to push. That means, technically speaking, that your performance should be off the chart, because the processor, the GPU, are working so much less harder than a lot of other phones on the market. And then, of course, that lends a hand to the battery as well. But my question here is, with 6 gigs of RAM, is it really needed? Because the last 2 iterations of Android, Google's been aggressively attacking running tasks in the background and closing them out. And the OS has been getting more and more intelligent and optimized for realizing when particular processes aren't needed, and it closes them out. Here, OnePlus is literally, with 6 gigs of RAM and 8 gigs of RAM you can get it with as well, is giving you this solution to just have unlimited amount of apps in the background. What's the point of having unlimited amount of apps in the background if the OS is going to kill the process anyway? So again, is this a misguided direction by OnePlus? Could they have went with the baseline of 4 gigs of RAM and gave us something else for that little bit of money or budget they had left over from there? I don't know. I'm not an Android developer. I'm curious. Some of the Android nerds, tell me about that bit. Tell me, would it have been better to really put that resource somewhere else and not within the RAM? Then here they come again with their cheating on the benchmarks type of thing here. So OnePlus, they've been exposed for writing code in the goddamn ambulance. Take a sip of my drink then. Bourbon. So they've been exposed for putting code in the OS where the phone detects when it's going through a benchmark or benchmark test, and we all know what benchmark test is. Hopefully we do. It's pretty much they have these tests that rigorously stresses the processor and the RAM and whatnot and gives it a score. And that's, people do this among all other phones to see where they rank. So OnePlus has rigged the phone to realize when it is going through a benchmark and maxes out the CPU, which is cheating. This is not cool. From the spec sheet, and again, going back to the fact that it is the balls to the wall 835 processor, and it is a 1080p display with 6 gigs of RAM. So I already on paper expect this phone to be working a lot less harder than other phones on the market, thus giving it a better benchmark score. But no, here they go, need to cheat. And so that's something I really don't like, something that kind of turns me off. And then speaking of that type of thing and reputation, one of my concerns with the OnePlus is also the support. They don't have the greatest track record for one, support, and two, actually update. So that's something to bear in mind. Now, after all that discussion, I don't think this phone is a flagship killer, and this is OnePlus's reputation. They're known for bringing out flagship killers. They're known for the mantra of never settle. I think there's a lot of settling here, and I don't know if it's worth it this time around. So, for instance, there's no wireless charging. That is not a flagship killer. There's wireless charging on other flagships in the market, and I expect it to be on all flagships going forward. There's no USB 3.1 here. It's only USB 2, even if it is the Type C. That's not cool, but they've got their own thing there where it's got the fast charging, which is okay, but when it comes to transferring files back and forth, you're back to 2.0. There's no quad display. We spoke about that. There's no curved quad display, something we come to expect on all flagships. There is no 2:1 aspect ratio, which is something, you know what, after using the Galaxy, I will never go back. I like just having a tall display. It's so much more comfortable to use. There is no water resistance here, and that's something that I personally can't live without anymore. I was introduced to that with the iPhone 7 Plus, and now I have it on my Galaxy 8 Plus. I can't go back. YouTube in the shower is the holy grail of first world living. And then there's customer service. I mean, you know, the Apple's got the Genius Bar, the Samsung's got the Samsung Store, and I get it. Not all Samsung stores are available. Well, not everyone has a Samsung store available anywhere close to them. So that is what it is. But flagships should come with flagship type support. We don't know what that is here. And then there's the price. I mean, the difference between this and something like a Galaxy is only $200. I would say save your money and just hold out a little longer and get a Galaxy. And I just don't think they delivered as decent of a product with as steep as an angle as they have in the past. That being said, I think the phone is dope. I think it's fine. I can't really see you going wrong here. Outside of the scumbag shit with the benchmarks, and hopefully it holds up. We don't know what the battery life will be like overall, but I think the phone is fine. I don't have much to hold against it when you remove yourself from the reputation that they sort of branded for it, right? Objectively speaking, it's a fine phone, and I think the people who should be disappointed with this phone are the OnePlus fanboys, and they won't be disappointed because they're fanboys. They will accept none of this. But I think it's okay. Will I recommend it? No, fuck out of here with that. I recommend flagships because I think phones and experiences should be built to last. And in the smartphone world, generally speaking, the way you go about that is spending your money to get the best of the best available. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Thumbs down if you're a OnePlus fanboy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And when you subscribe to the channel, hit that little notification bell so you know when our videos go live. My name is Ramon. I'm out of here. Peace. If I had to describe Lifestyles Defined, I would say it is a dream come true to have a platform where we can talk about the things that we love and we can share with people who also love the things we love the way we love, and just have conversations that matter and go back and forth and grow as a community. It's been a pleasure. It's been a dream, and I just want to thank everyone that's involved for rocking out with us.